Good evening and welcome to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliatambi. I am privileged to have as my guests tonight two very distinguished gentlemen, both of whom have served in the crucial post of Foreign Secretary. They are Ambassador Bernard Gunatilaka, currently Chairman of the Pathfinder Foundation, and Admiral Professor Jayannath Kolomage, who is a former commander of the Navy and former ambassador and a distinguished fellow of the Pathfinder Foundation. Now, what are we discussing this evening? Something vitally important to our nation, our nation's future in the present time and far into the future, and that is national security. Now, when I say national security, this is not just about being prepared for external wars or internal challenges to law and order. I'm talking about areas such as food security, energy security, the environment, human capital and knowledge, health security, cyber security, economic security, good governance, in fact, a whole gamut of areas. Over the decades, of course, as every Sri Lankan will accept, we have been found wanting in many of these areas. We have not been prepared enough. And it's time that we looked into this, and the Pathfinder Foundation, which was founded by Milinda Morogoda, has prepared a comprehensive proposal for a national security strategy for Sri Lanka. And let me ask Mr. Bernard Gunatilaka, the chairman of the Pathfinder Foundation, to explain why Sri Lanka needs the strategy now. Mr. Gunatilaka?
Well, if I may go back, the Pathfinder Foundation about 6-7 years ago focused on the same subject. So this is not something new. In October 2019, we released our first document on the same subject. We were planning to release our second one in 2025, but it took some time for us to get it going, and we did it a couple of months ago. Now the question is whether it is now or then. National security strategy is something very important for a nation. If you take Sri Lanka, for example, in 1970s, we had insurgencies, 1980s, we had a separatist struggle, so on and so forth. 2009, we had another development. Then, of course, those are directly related to security. But then 2004 and 2025 November, we had a different situation. That is natural
disasters.
So we have faced several situations. Of course, I did not go to the extent of mentioning the Easter Sunday issue or 2022 Aragalaya development. All those are, they affected the national security. And having gone through all those developments, I think it is time for the government, for the people, and also think tanks like Pathfinder Foundation and other think tanks to focus on this and to see whether we should focus on this particular subject and not to be reactive like what we have been doing in the past, but to be proactive.
Right. Now, Admiral Kolomage, let me ask you, why is it that Sri Lanka has so far failed to adopt such a strategy? Many countries in the world have done so, and these strategies are always apolitical, because it doesn't matter which party is in office. The nation's requirements are identified and codified in such a strategy and in subsequent policy. So why is it that we in Sri Lanka, and we face so many challenges, but why is it we haven't had the wisdom to formulate these strategies and to adopt them?
Well, I think one shortfall in Sri Lanka is lack of long-term strategies, be that economic policies, be that foreign policy, be that national security policy. We have been lacking these long-term strategies. I believe we are caught up in the democratic cycle of elections, coming to power, re-elections. So no government has been willing to take long-term view of the country, where the country would want to be in 10 years, 15 years or 20 years. I mean, their strategies were more or less 5 years, that is the next electoral cycle. So this has been an issue. And also Sri Lanka has been mostly mostly reactive rather than planning things well ahead, understanding the trends and understanding the overall view which is likely to happen in a long time to come. So in national security, I think, for a long time, our national security was focused on hard military security, that is protecting the nation, protecting the state from external aggression. Of course, in the recent past, we are lucky we did not have any external aggression, but we have had internal aggression. So protecting the state was our main focus. But now increasingly we realize that we need to protect the individual in that state also in order to have comprehensive national security strategy. So even now I think the time is right for us to put our thinking hat again and put down a national security strategy based on a national security policy, not for a short term, but for a long term. But it doesn't mean that once we have a national security strategy, it remain untouched. No, it has to be a dynamic, living document, which we need to upgrade, update from time to time. So even now, better late than never. Now, as Ambassador Gunathilaka mentioned, Pathfinder put forward the first national security strategy in 2019. I really do not know whether anyone took any serious note on the contents of it. And we have now come out with another national security strategy. This is not the job of a think tank alone. This is the job of the government. So the government has to take some proactive measures rather than waiting until the next event take place to react and say that, oh, we need to tackle it that way. So we have to do it even now.
Right. And Admiral, we in Sri Lanka were used to going from one disaster to the other. And it may be man-made, it may be a natural disaster, it may be something external like this Iran war. But we go from one disaster to the other, and that is what such a policy would address, wouldn't it?
Of course. Now you mentioned the natural calamities. 2004 tsunami, Boxing Day tsunami. We learned a lot of lessons from that. And as a result, we have the Disaster Management Center, Disaster Management Act. Now we know how to act before a disaster. When we receive early warning, we now know at least how to act. That is a good thing. And then, this national security strategy talk about energy security. You see, now when the Strait of Hormuz is closed, we are having problems because we have not diversified our energy sources sufficiently. We have not really gone big time with renewable energy. Right? So at least now let us think about diversifying our energy resources, not to depend totally on the Strait of Hormuz, what is coming out of Strait of Hormuz. If we continue to do that, I think the next time somebody decide closing down Bab el Mandeb, we will again suffer. So we need to really focus. I think that is the purpose of a national security strategy. Think on various aspects of national security, protecting the country, protecting the individual in that country, as you explained, many areas. So this is the idea of a national security strategy for the government to think on these lines and to come out with something positive, something documented.
Right. You mentioned the Bab el Mandeb. For those of our viewers who are unfamiliar with that, that is the strait which connects the Red Sea with the Indian Ocean.
Yep.
And I believe it is bordered by Yemen.
Yemen on one side and Djibouti on the other side.
Right.
And it is actually connecting the Red Sea with the Gulf of Aden, which is a main artery of the world trade, and including Sri Lanka, because most of our exports are going to European Union through this very narrow channel. Because now the situation is volatile in Bab el Mandeb, the shipping has to reroute against around the Cape of Good Hope, that is the tip of South Africa. That means increased freight cost, increased insurance cost, increased fuel cost, and not delivering our goods on time to the market. So we suffer. So we have to be prepared for these contingencies. Right,
and that is where the national security strategy should come in. Ambassador Gunatilaka, and I have two gentlemen who have been ambassadors and foreign secretaries, but could you expand on who should be setting these policies? In the past, we have had politicians, some of whom have been learned and others who are not so learned. And in fact, there was a time when we questioned whether even half of those in Parliament had passed their O-levels. But hopefully we have a more learned lot in Parliament now. But who should be setting these policies? Should it be politicians or civil servants or academics, private sector, or is it a combination of all of them?
Well, in the Sri Lanka context, it is the responsibility of the executive president. Apart from whatever qualifications they may have, the issue is he is the person who commands the armed forces and also has access to the information provided by the intelligence services and also the support of the various services. So it is the responsibility of the president in the Sri Lankan context. And what we have said in this document is, first we will have to start by developing national security policy, for which purpose he will have to look around, see who the capable people, qualified people, experienced people, and get a group of them and try tell them within a specific period of time, please come up with this particular policy. Based on that policy and the support it receives from the legislature, very important, because it cannot be partisan kind of a experiment. There must be approval, support from the entire parliament, and based on that, of course, he can determine how the national security strategy could be developed by an experienced and qualified group of people.
Right. Now, Mr. Gunatilaka, some countries publish their various policies, their national security or whatever policies are published for the public to see, for all the world to see. So it's very clear and transparent. Other countries do not. What's the difference?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you take, for example, United States, every administration, or generally speaking every 5 years, they come up with such documents. If you take the United Kingdom, it is the same case. On the other side is, for example, our neighbor India. They do not publish national security strategy, and not because I don't think it is because they want to hide what it is, but taking into consideration the ground situation, they may be of the view that it is better for them to keep their strategies to themselves, not publish. So these are the two different examples where national security strategies are concerned.
Right. Admiral, let me ask you about the structures that we already have. We have the Defense Ministry, we have a Defense Secretary, we have a National Security Council, but those have been focused more on the military intelligence and law and order and so on. Is it the contention of the Pathfinder Foundation that we need another structure which would look at national security as a whole?
Well, I mean, to create another structure will mean additional cost to the country, additional cost to the taxpayer, and maybe another layer delayed action on the part of that. So, as you mentioned, that we have a Ministry of Defense. We have a Secretary of Defense who is focusing on security, national security. And we increasingly now know that national security is not only hardcore military security, right? So we have to now look at other areas of security to include comprehensive security. So I believe that we need to legalize the structures that we have in that sense. We have to legalize the National Security Council because right now it is somewhat ad hoc. It is up to the wish of the president how he wants to handle the National Security Council, how many meetings he should have, who should be in that. Now, I was a member of National Security Council for a very long time in many different capacities. So I think that's not the way to go. We need to really legalize this National Security Council structure. And then these added security concerns that we have in health, environment, good governance, energy, pandemic, all these have to now come into place. All these now have to be considered when we design a future national security policy. Now, the national security policy should only lay the guidelines to create a national security strategy. So, to me, the Ministry of Defense is the nodal agency, the top agency to do that. But they need to be, other stakeholders need to be incorporated into that. Then only we can have a comprehensive national security plan. Obviously, the president is the executive president we have, and then we have the cabinet of ministers, we have the parliament. They have to play a role in designing that, but then they alone cannot do it. And they are too big. If you take the parliament, it's too big to design a national security strategy. So we have to have a smaller group led by the Ministry of Defense who will actually take into consideration the areas that we know which would impact on human security, through that the state security, and then brief it to the president and to the National Security Council and maybe even the cabinet of ministers, and get some blessings from them and go forward with that. So let's think of that way.
Right. Admiral, when you talk about security, now at the moment, to my mind, we have a couple of issues which are certainly not military related. One is energy security, and that's because of the Iran war. But we are not involved in that war, and neither can we affect the outcome of that war, but it's affecting our energy security. So that's a major issue. At the same time, our food security is also under threat, again due to the war, number one, because of the impact on fertilizer, which also comes from the Middle East to a great extent, and also food security directly affects poverty levels, and we still have a fairly high poverty level, too high, in fact, for a country like ours, which is still hovering above the 20% mark. And just a few years ago, it was at about 8%. So we need to get back to those areas. So what you're saying is that whether we have these structures in place or not, they need to deal with all these different issues in security.
Well, true. The weak human security means a weak state. You know, how long people can absorb this shock of increased fuel prices, increased food prices, increased cost of living. And Sri Lanka is unfortunately one country which has gone from 8% poverty level to more than 20% right now. So people have limitations to bear all these things, right? So therefore, that is why I say the human security is a critical component of national security. Now we know that we depend on oil to come from the Strait of Hormuz because it is close. We are paying a higher price. I just calculated this morning. Approximately, we import about 1.3 million barrels of oil per month. And now, from previous level, before Iran war, it was around $72. Now it's about $100. So there is a difference of $28 per barrel of oil. When you calculate that, it's about $34 million per month we have to pay. This is a very rough calculation. And in addition to what we used to pay. Now that money could have been used to help people to move out of poverty. But government is helpless because these are not the prices, not something we control. It is controlled by the international markets, right? So we have a problem. We have a huge problem. Rather than overcoming the absolute poverty, we are getting more and more of our people into poverty. Now, if you look at the Sustainable Development Goal, the target is 2030. I think we are way off. So this is not only Sri Lanka. Every country in the world is suffering from this. But do we have a solution? Do we even condemn these activities, unilateral activities taken by the states which are impacting on us? No. We are now maintaining somewhat a strategic silence. Not only a strategic neutrality, but strategic silence also. Not only Sri Lanka, many countries are exercising that strategic silence. Is this the way to go for the world? Are we getting back to the closed sea concept which we had in the 15th century? These are the problems we need to answer now. How long can we allow this price escalation to impact us? We have to find solutions. This is why we need strategies, we need policies to tackle them. The next time some flashpoint take place in the Indian Ocean and the shipping is interrupted, are we going to go through the same cycle and impacting the quality of life of our people? I think these are the questions we need. We cannot test the patience of people for too long. People will start blaming the government, although the government cannot control these things right now. So we have to have strategies to the future.
Excellent. A lot of food for thought there. I am with Ambassador Bernard Gunathilaka and Admiral Jayanath Kolomage. We need to take a short commercial break right now. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The ultimate stage, built to ignite the talents of our nation's children. The open-air stage at Galnava Kattaragama Primary School is now officially open. To dance, to sing, to play music. Children, this stage belongs to you. Gamatha, for the people, by the people.
මගේ වයිස් එකම කොහොමද දෙන්නේ?
එහෙම බැලුවා මට තුන ඔක්කොම කලින් කෝච් යසස්ව කන්ට්‍රෝල් එකට ගත්තා නම් හොඳයි කියලා. රිටර්න් එක එකට දෙක බැගි. සිටිජ් එක බර්ත්ඩේ ගිෆ්ට් එක දෙන්න යනවා.
විශා.
Voice Team Season 3 සතියක රාත්‍රී 8:30ට.
මගේ අම්මා මේ පොතවා කියවනකොට මං කොතන කොහොම ඉඳීද කියන්නේ මන් දන්නේ නැහැ.
සිස්ටර් කියන්නේ මේ අපේ හසරැලි කියලාද? පෙනුම එක වගේ වෙච්ච පළියට අපිට එහෙම හිතන්න පුළුවන්ද? හිතයිෂි.
හෙට රාත්‍රී 8:30ට
සිරස ටෙලිතිරයෙන්.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I am with Ambassador Bernard Gunathilaka and Admiral Jayanath Kolamage, and we are discussing the national security strategy. To give our viewers a little bit more information about both of these very distinguished gentlemen, Mr. Bernard Gunathilaka served as Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 2003 to 2004. He joined the Foreign Service as far back as 1970, and he served in many of our diplomatic missions in Kuala Lumpur, in New York, Bangkok, Washington DC, Geneva, and Beijing. He was Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, and later Sri Lanka's ambassador to the People's Republic of China. Following the signing of the ceasefire agreement in 2002, he headed the Secretariat for coordinating the peace process and also functioned as one of the 4 members of the government's negotiating team. He also served as acting permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations in New York. And he ended his diplomatic career in 2008 as ambassador to the United States. Following his requirement, he was appointed chairman of the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management, and later chairman of the Tourism Development Authority and the Tourism Promotion Bureau. And since 2010, he has functioned as chairman of the Pathfinder Foundation. He is, of course, a graduate in history and has a postgraduate qualification in international relations from The Hague. My second guest, Admiral Jayanath Kolamage, served as commander of the Sri Lanka Navy from 2012 to 2014. He was the Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, prior to which he served as Additional Secretary to the President for Foreign Relations. Following his retirement from the Navy, he served as Ambassador to Indonesia. He has worked as a Director for Indo-Sri Lanka Initiatives and the Law of the Sea Centers at the Pathfinder Foundation. In 2020, he was appointed Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies of Sri Lanka, and he has served as the chairman of the Sri Lanka branch of the Nautical Institute. He has been a regular lecturer at the Defence Services Command and Staff College, and he has been certified by the International Maritime Organization as a lecturer in international conventions on port and ship security. He has published several books, including one on asymmetric warfare at sea, the case of Sri Lanka. He holds a Master of Science degree in Defence Studies from the University of Madras, a Master of Arts in International Studies from King's College, London, and a PhD from the General Sir John Kothawala Defence University. Now, Mr. Gunathilaka, let me come back to you. We spoke about the role of the Defence Secretary and the National Security Council. How do you see their roles when it comes to this kind of national security?
Well, earlier we discussed about the National Security Council. And you will recall the fact that that particular institution was established by a Gazette notification under emergency regulations in 1999. And somewhere down the line, after many years, emergency regulations were removed. But the National Security Council continued to function. So it was an anomaly. And in 2019, in September, a cabinet decision was taken that there should be a National Security Council legislated by the Parliament. But unfortunately, the time was not right at that time. Presidential elections came, and the government changed. A new president was appointed. As a result, people forgot about that particular cabinet decision. If we had followed that, then we would have had by this time a National Security Council legislatively approved instead of a council that is now functioning. Of course, because we have now emergency regulations, so one can say it is legal, but we would have had a legislatively approved National Security Council. Second point is with regard to the role of the Defence Ministry and the role of Defence Secretary. We have to understand, now earlier we spoke about the role of the Defence Ministry in relation to physical safety and security of the nation and the people. So he is the person who is responsible for that task, who will look after the interests of the armed forces and attend to day-to-day activities of that particular ministry. Like that, we have 15 or more similar ministries functioning in the country. Now, earlier we agreed that the role of this particular ministry is not exactly what it used to be, because the kind of security problems what the country and the nation face are different from physical security of the people and the country. So therefore, there is a need to have a person, according to the proposal what we have made, a National Security Advisor. Now, National Security Advisor will be like for example, in India, should report directly to the President, Executive President. He should have access to the information provided by the intelligence services. And he will be the person who will coordinate, like in other countries, activities involving all the ministries in the country, including the Defence Ministry. So the Defence Secretary will have a seat at the council, as well as this particular position holder, National Security Advisor. So we have to bear in mind the fact the role of the Defence National Security Advisor is basically to advise the President and the Cabinet with regard to the policy decisions that should be taken by the government. The role of the Defence Secretary is something different. He is the person who is in charge of getting things done in relation to the security of the country. So this is the two different roles, and in our proposal we have recommended appointing a National Security Advisor who will be heading the National Security Secretariat and will be part of the National Security Council.
Now, Mr. Gupta, in the past, the National Security Council was composed of military officers, the commanders of the tri-forces, the IGP, and of course the intelligence chiefs and so on. But your document, the National Security Strategy, is all-encompassing, as it should be. So who should be on the National Security Council? Let's say there's a health crisis or an energy crisis. So who would represent those areas on the council?
See, the head of the National Security Council will be the Executive President. There will be a role for the Prime Minister to play. There will be a minimum of 4 ministries represented by ministers and secretaries: Defence, Foreign Affairs, national security,
economics,
and finance. Those are the major four. Now you spoke about other areas like health or food security, which is agriculture, for example. Those ministers or secretaries or officials could be invited to attend the meetings of the National Security Council when such subjects are being discussed.
Right, that's an interesting point, but we hope that they would be invited because otherwise their expertise would run to waste. Now, Admiral, let me ask you, this is the million-dollar question in Sri Lanka. How do you prevent this from becoming politicized? Because we are talking about national priorities, the nation's interests, short-term, mid-term and long-term, and structures and policies and strategies to suit those. How do you prevent politicization of this?
Well, I think in Sri Lankan context, it's quite a different task not to politicize anything. I mean, whatever the committee we have, it is basically siding with the political party in power, which is quite natural. But I think we need a long-term strategy, long-term vision for Sri Lanka. And in that, I think we need to first understand what are our national interests. Right? Not immediately, not in the 5 years that a particular government is in power, but say 10 years, 15 years down the line, what are our national interests? That is, I think, the step number one. Actually, the national security strategy put forward by the Pathfinder Foundation initially talk about our national interests. And then we have to understand what are the national power we have in order to achieve these national interests. We call it DIME. Diplomatic, informational, military, and economics, right? So when you are looking in that way, it is not limited to the immediate 4 to 5 years. It is actually a far-reaching objective of a country, of a state. Now, also, we can look back and see for the last, let's say, 77 years, have we really achieved our national interests? If the answer is no, then we have to look back and see why we didn't achieve these national interests. So then I think we have to have an understanding, the lessons learned from that, the national interest, why we haven't achieved them. Obviously, we have not achieved all our national potential. If we have achieved, then we are not in this situation in 2022, and we are not in this situation now. So we need to overcome this trap that we are in, right? So how do we not politicize such a venture is again up to the politicians, right? So they have to come out and say, okay, we are not going to politicize this. We need people who are capable, who are mature, who are professionals, who are not thinking on political angle only, but political angle matters for any country. It is because we are governed by our political system. So how do we, I think again, it is up to the political leadership not to politicize this national security policy, national security strategy, National Security Council, and then the National Security Advisor. Now, India is a perfect example of not politicizing these key institutions. I mean, the National Security Advisor of India right now, he has served many governments before. And he's still serving this government, current government. That's a perfect example. So what we really need is a human-centered national security strategy, which is not politicized for a shorter period of time. We need to think of longer period of time with a longer vision, having understood the national interest and having understood how to achieve them.
Right. Mr. Gunitaga, let me ask you this question. Can we afford not to have such a national security strategy and policy and changes to the council and so on? Are we running a huge risk in not making those changes now after so many lessons from our history over the, you can say, 76 years, or you can say the last 10 or 20 years, but we certainly should learn from that history.
I fully agree with you. There is a need for this kind of an arrangement to have a properly constituted National Security Council, Secretariat, Advisor. Basically, going back to the previous question, with a view not to politicize it, the whole system must be adopted through a legislative process, and bipartisan approach is the most essential element. So if we can have that kind of an arrangement, national security strategy or the council or the secretariat will outlive governments and will continue as Admiral Colomagay mentioned. Whatever the administration, the institutions will survive and institution will provide support for the government.
And the guidelines will be in the strategy and in the policy, no matter who comes to serve on the council.
True. And of course, these guidelines will be visited and revisited depending on situations, new developments, as according to the needs. So it will be a proper, timely kind of arrangements that the country will eventually have.
Right. We are almost out of time, but my last question to Admiral Colomagay is this. What is the single biggest lesson that we can take from our past, Sri Lanka's past, because we have faced so many different challenges, man-made and natural and global. What is the single biggest lesson? Is it to focus on being more prepared?
Well, I think the single biggest lesson that I right now think is we need to be proactive rather than reacting when a situation develops from time to time. We have had enough situations to learn. If we are really interested in learning, we have had natural calamities, a tsunami, cyclones, and it's not going to end. And also rebellions and a civil war. So we have had enough incidents or situations to learn. And most of the time we were reacting to the situation. But I think the biggest lesson is we need to be forecasting the future. We need to be thinking or looking ahead and to be proactive to situation rather than waiting for the next situation to take place and then take action. Prevention is better than reacting, even mitigating once an incident takes place. So that is the biggest lesson I can think of.
And my closing question to Mr. Gunatilaka is this. What is your key message to the policymakers now that the Pathfinder Foundation has come up with this excellent document, well researched, which has been prepared by a galaxy of stars, basically, experienced people in diplomacy, in military situations, and so on. What is your message to the policymakers?
The message is what we have here, Niresh, is a proposal. The proposal is before the government, academics, other think tanks to look at. And it is our hope, like what the cabinet decided in 2019, there will be some legislative action to go for a national security policy, development of that within a short period of time. It can be done, followed by adopting a national security strategy and having the institutions to support it. That is the National Security Secretariat headed by a National Security Advisor. So it is time for the authorities concerned to give consideration to these proposals and to see what are the shortcomings of this proposal itself, and to see how it could be improved and take a decision how to proceed with it.
Very well put indeed, and very politely put. I would put it this way: read it and understand it, please, our policymakers. And with that, I'm afraid we are out of time. My thanks to my distinguished guests this evening, Mr. Bernard Gunatilaka, Chairman of the Pathfinder Foundation, and Admiral Professor Jayanath Kolamage, who is a distinguished fellow of the Pathfinder Foundation. Thank you very much for joining me this evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, Nilesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.
TV1. TV for life.
Scores of people from all corners of the island continue to pour in to the Sirasa Namami Vesak zone. National Transport Commission says no increase in bus fares despite rise in fuel prices. Sri Lanka receives a financial grant of $1.33 million from Japan. Tea export earnings rise to $451 million within 4 months. Rough seas, fishermen advised to remain vigilant. Iran has agreed to stop producing nuclear weapons, says Trump.
TV1. TV for life.
Sanramar Budu himi gun samaramu Sadhu 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 Duka gena hari hati dutua dukat hetu veda